So when you run your app, you'll notice that everything works correctly except department locations. And it'll display, and you can create a new one, but we can't get into edit or delete or details. Okay, those features don't work. And it is because when it does the scaffolding, it's only scaffolding one primary key, not a composite key. Also, we do have a bit of an issue with the edit because Entity Framework will not allow you to change any part of a key. We have a composite key. Therefore, we can't change department or location. So there is really nothing for us to edit because it's not going to allow us to change any part of the key. So what we would end up having to do is delete the key and add a new one. Okay. If we add additional properties, then we could have an edit and we'd be able to change those extra properties, but we don't. A bridge table doesn't usually have additional properties. It only has the fields that make up the key. Okay, so we have some modifications to make to our app. First one that we are going to make is we are simply going to remove the edit feature altogether because we can't use it. So we're going to go into the controller and we are going to find our edit action methods and we are going to delete them. So here's the get. And here's the post. Okay. Then we're going to go into the view. And now you have to make sure your app is not running because it's not going to let you make deletions and that type of thing if it's running. But we're going to delete our edit view for department location because we can't use it. Okay, then there are two views that have links to edit. One of them is index. So we're going to go into index and we're going to delete the link to edit. And then the other one is details. So we're going to go into details and we're going to delete this link to edit. And then let's save all our changes and we'll run a build. Okay. So at this point, our edit feature is gone. Poof. All right. So next thing we need to do is fix the details and the delete features. So part of the problem is that the index isn't passing the controller both of the keys. So I'm going to open up department location index. And if we look at what this action link is doing, it's actually not passing anything. So we need to change this. And so we're going to call the first one department ID. Set that equal to item dot department ID. And then the second one we're going to call location ID. Set that equal to item dot location ID. Okay. And so that is what we're going to be passing back to the controller. And we need to do the same thing for the delete. So I'm just going to copy this, paste it over this comment that is doing nothing. Okay, so now I am passing the controller the two pieces of information that it needs. So let's save that. And let's go into the controller. And we've got to fix up our action methods. So in the details, you can see that it is just pulling in one of the IDs. And we have now changed the name of it. So we're calling it Department ID. So we got to change this to Department ID. And then we've got to tell it now we have another one called Location ID. Okay. And then we've got to make some adjustments in the code here. So here it should be checking to see if Department ID is null. So let's copy that over here. And then we also want to check to see if Location ID is equal to null. And then the final thing that we need to change is probably the most important. When it's reading, going after the record in the database, right now it's only using one key. Okay? And we need it to use both. Now we changed the name to Department ID, so we need to fix that here. And then the second key that it needs to look for is Location ID. So it needs to look for both. So we're going to use an and we're going to tell it to look for Location ID and Department ID. All right. So at this point, our details view should display. It should be fixed. And if you want to test it, you can. And you'll also notice that the edit is gone. So we got no more edit and details is working. Okay. We still have to fix delete. So we're going to need to make changes in delete that are almost identical to what we just did for details. Okay. In fact, I'm going to copy this because the delete has to have the exact same parameters because that's how we coded it over in the index. So here is our get for delete. So let's put this in here. I'm going to paste it. Okay, this is the exact same check that we have up in the details. So we need to make the same changes. And then we need to make the same change down here. It's using first or default, just like details did. And we need to have it look for both of our keys. All right, so at this point, the get should work. So we should be able to see what we want to delete, but we aren't actually going to be able to delete it because with the delete, we have a get and a post. With the details, we didn't, right? We just had the get, it displays it, we don't change anything. But with the deletion, we have to submit that. So it's going to run through this post. And as you can see, we got the same little issue here. Okay. And if we look at our delete page, okay, you can see that it's got department ID and location ID hidden. Okay, so it has that information for our controller, but we have to fix it up here. So let's pull in department ID and location ID. And because this is confirming a delete, these are not nullable. These need to be filled in. Okay, because if they're not, we can't do our delete. Okay, so we have to add them here. And then the other place we need to add them is where it's actually looking for the row to delete. Okay, it's using the find. And so the syntax for this is just to give it the primary key. And if there's more than one, you put a comma in. Okay. So that should retrieve the key that we want to delete. And then it'll redirect to the index when it's done. So let's save, run a little build. Just make sure we didn't do any typos, and then let's run it. So now our delete should work. So we'll delete 3 and 3 here. So it's displaying, and we hit delete, and that worked. And if we go into delete and we go back to list, that is working. So at this point, we can create, we can see the details, we can delete. This is all functional. The only issue that we still have is it's not particularly user-friendly. Like, I don't know what department 1 is. I don't know what location 1 is. Nobody should have to memorize that stuff. So we can actually make this a whole lot better and more user-friendly. So let's close out of here. And all of the information that we need is being passed to the views. At least it's being passed to the index. It's being passed to the details and to the delete. The create, we're going to have to do a couple extra things for excuse me. So we're going to go ahead and go into our index. And so this is what it's displaying right now. But we're going to change this so that instead of the department ID, we get the name. And instead of the location ID, we're going to get the address. Okay, and those are properties that are in our classes. And when it retrieves the data in the controller and we pass it to the view gets all the data. So we can display whatever we want. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and display the name and the address. That is going to make this a whole lot easier for people to understand. Okay, so I'm going to save this and run it just so you can see how much better that index looks. Okay, so now we have a user-friendly department and location. So we're going to go ahead and make those same changes to the details and the delete. Okay, I'm going to close. I don't want to have all these open. All right, so we modified the index. Now let's do our delete. And so you can see here we're getting the ID. Let's change it to name. And then here is where we're getting location ID. Let's change that to address. Okay, and I'm going to save it And I'm going to open up details and we're going to do the same thing. So here we've got ID, changing it to name. Here we've got ID and we're changing it to address. Okay, and this is kind of typical of foreign keys. Foreign keys, it always will display the ID, but you can change and have it display whatever makes the most sense. Okay, so at this point, we'll go ahead and run this. Um, everything is user-friendly except for the create. We have to do a little extra work on that. Okay, so user-friendly, we've got user-friendly here, and it's more user-friendly on our delete. Okay, create is a little bit of extra work because we got drop downs. And ideally, in the drop down, we would want the number and the name here, and we'd want the number and the address here. And we can do this, but it's a change that we have to make in the controller. Okay, so I'm going to close out of there. So let's take a look at the controller to see what it is passing to the view. Okay, so we're looking for our create. Okay, and you can see we've got view data. We're calling it department ID, location ID, and we're doing a select list and we are retrieving the ID. So I'm going to comment those out. Because we want to not only retrieve the ID, but for department, we also want to retrieve the name. And for location, we also want to retrieve the address. Okay. And so a view bag and view data are kind of interchangeable. The view bag is a wrapper for view data. So we're just going to use view bag here. Okay. And we're going to set this equal to new select list. And I'm just going to press enter. This is going to get rather lengthy. We'll do context dot departments. Press enter. Oh, I hate it when it does this. Okay, well, I'm just going to keep typing dot select. And we've got new. Now we've got to give it what we want. D.ID display name equals D.ID plus. Let's put a little dash in there. And then we also want to display the name. So I think it's got the rest of this correct. Nope. Let me see. No, I'm going to key over the top. All right, so we've got right curly, right parenthesis, comma, press enter, ID, comma, display name, comma, department, location, oops, dot department ID. There we go. Okay. Did I forget something? I'm going to keep going. Pretty sure I did that right. View bag, not department equals new select list. Select ID plus a dash. This is how we want it to display. Comma. It's our ID. Oh, small d. Let me see. Location department ID. Okay. That should have worked. We'll try this for locations. That is correct. Okay, L.ID, display name equals L dot, adding a dash, plus, we don't want type, want L address, and ID, display name, okay. And then down here, we need to change this to department location. And let me figure out what the heck it does not like. Hold on. Alrighty, I know what the problem is. We do not have a variable for department location, so we need to remove that. We are only passing the view bag. So I'm going to fix this in the screenshot you guys have. All right. That is what we need. That will pass us the correct information. So I'm going to go ahead and save. And I'm going to pause so I can do a new screenshot. All right, let's go ahead and run this. So at this point, everything is user-friendly. So we'll go into our create, and this is so much more user-friendly than it was before. There is one problem left that we need to fix, and that is because, and let me go back to the list. It should catch if we try to do a duplicate. So here's Executive 300 Park Avenue. All right, this is a duplicate. If I hit create, I should get an error, but that's not what happens. If I hit create, I am going to get a database error because I am trying to add the same primary key that already exists. Okay, and that's basically what this is saying. So we should not allow this to happen. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a check in to make sure that they can't do that. Okay, and so the check is going to need to be in our post. Okay, and let's see, we don't have to change any of the routing data, so this is fine. But what we do need to do before it checks to see if the model is valid. And the model is at this point valid, even though we are adding a duplicate key, an error has not been flagged. So what we need to do above this is check to see if the record is there. And if the record is there, we need to raise a flag. Okay, so that is what we're going to do. And I'll put a little comment in. Check if this department and location combo already exists. Okay, so that's the first thing that we're going to do. And we'll say bool exists equals context dot department locations dot, and we're going to look for any. I'm going to press tab and make adjustments to this as needed. So let's see, department location, dl.department ID equals department location dot department ID, and dl location ID equals department location dot location ID. Okay, that is correct. All right, so this is going to check the database to see if that combination is there. And if the combination is there, it's going to return a true. So exists will have a true if there is a problem. So now we need to check exists. So if exists is true, that means we have a problem. And we need to add a user-friendly error message to the model state. Okay. And the way we do that is we use, let me press tab and see if this is correct. We use model state dot add model error. Okay, string dot empty. And let's see, this department and location combination already exists. That's fine. However, I'm going to change this to say this department is already assigned. Assigned to the selected location. Okay. So once we add the error message, the model state will no longer be valid. So it is not going to save the changes. Okay, the error state has been changed. An error is flagged. So it's going to return to the create page and it's going to display the error, which is exactly what we want it to do. However, there is another thing we're going to have to change because when it goes back to the create page, we don't want this ID business there. We actually want this code. So I'm going to copy this code, comment out this code. And then we're going to paste that code in so that when it goes back to the create and we click on our lists, we're going to get that nice display. All right, let's save this. and we're going to run it. So let's create, we'll try to create one. Do plant. All right, so we did 6 and 1. And now let's try to do it again. Okay, so this is working. Without that fix that we just did, we would see that database error. And now we have eliminated that. And at this point, you guys are done with the app and you can upload to GitHub and turn in your link.